Hello, everyone. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is some recent experiences that I've been having with the Joe Dispenza teachings. And I'm calling this the emerging biology of immortality because, you know, the research being done at the moment is in its infancy, understanding how we can affect our genetics and our body in becoming or extending our life. And this is how Joe explains it, is that whether or not you believe in physical immortality, you can extend your life by doing certain practices. And the practices are similar to having a rebirthing breathwork session. We're getting into an altered state of consciousness, and then we are becoming into a zero state when you fully surrender. And this is part of Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation technique. Okay, so just to show you that there is research, genetic research going on at the moment. This is published on the US government website about how telomeres, which are part of the genetic code, can be extended. And this means our life can be extended under certain lifestyle conditions. Okay, so this is what a telomere looks like. It's at the very tip of a gene. And the important factor here is that as a cell divides, the genetic material within it, the telomere, decreases each time that cell divides. And so this is what causes cells to die off in the end, and it affects our lifespan. And the important thing to note is it's actually the enzyme telomerase that helps rejuvenate the telomere. And this is what we're doing when we're getting into an altered state of consciousness, when we're filling ourselves with love flooding into our body. That's signaling to telomerase we're in a good way and we want to continue thriving, and telomerase gets produced. Now, Joe did some experiments on this, and he had a group of people meditating for 60 days, 1 hour per day, for 5 or 7 days per week. And they've got a machine which actually you can you can determine the telomerase length. And what they found was there was a 40% significant increase in telomere length and a 22% dramatic increase in telomere length. So all over that period of time, 60 days of meditating, the majority of the people in the experiment, over 60%, increased their telomere length. Now, what happens to prevent the telomere from, keeping its length is increases in cortisol, adrenaline, and trauma. They decrease telomere length. So the take-home message is, by raising your vital energy and your love for life, you can keep those telomeres extended. Now, he's done another research study, which is particularly interesting. He had a control and an experiment. And in the control, he had 3 people literally meditating over an incubator with cancer cells in it, and then another incubator with no one meditating over it. And they had breast cancer cells in the incubator, which are maintained at a 5% carbon dioxide level and 37 degrees centigrade. And what they found was, after the meditation, and they've got a machine that they can determine the energy within the cells. It's called a seahorse machine, and it looks at mitochondrial energy production with adenosine triphosphate, and it measures this within the cells. And there was a 25% decrease in energy of the cells that were meditated on. And then in the other, where there was no meditation, the cells just continued as they were. So he took this a step further and was thinking that, well, what is it about the meditation that is causing these cells to reduce their energy? There's got to be some kind of frequency. So he set up another experiment where the control had no cage around it, and people meditated over the cancer cells again. And then he had a Faraday EMF blocking cage surrounding the cancer cells, with people meditating on the cells as well. And what they found, I can't give you the statistics on this because it's unpublished data, but there was a significant decrease in the cancer cells' energy when people were meditating over it. But when the frequency of the meditation was blocked using the Faraday blocking cage, the cancer cells continued to grow as normal. So therefore, meditation, it looks like, emits an EMF frequency. I mentioned previously about Dr. Joe's research, where they're using this seahorse machine to determine whether energy is derived through the glycolysis route or through mitochondrial ATP. So these are two pathways that cells use to get their energy. In the general scientific community, there's some really interesting research going on showing how when mice are put in a cold environment, how it stimulates the immune system. So what they're saying here is that when mice are subjected to a cold environment, cold-induced, so this is glucose activation, substantially decreases blood glucose and impedes the glycolysis-based metabolism in cancer cells. So then the cells are deriving their energy from mitochondrial ATP, which is a lot more efficient, as opposed to using up glucose. And this is also backed up in Joe's work, where they're using that seahorse machine, and it's showing that once you're in the state, you are using mitochondrial ATP rather than glycolysis. You may have heard that reducing sugars is a good idea for people who have cancer, and this is where that line of thinking comes from. Tumors use glucose as their energy source, and that's how tumors grow, from using glucose. So this goes back to cold water rebirthing and what we know about how when we're breathing in cold water, we face our deepest fears and our death urge. And to be able to get through them, we're stimulating our immune system with our life urge. This work has been more popularized recently by Wim Hof. And there was even a BBC television program where Wim took celebrities through the cold water technique that he uses. And, you know, their lust for life and their wanting to break through things dramatically increased. And so there is a lot of talk in the scientific world about the effect that cold water swimming, going into cold water, and how it stimulates your immune system. So a little bit of stress is good, and it does impact in a beneficial way, statistically significant, the immune system. So if we go back to this mice study, they found that by inducing a cold environment in mice who they had put stimulated tumors into them, the mice, the tumors were affected and reduced. So the research is cold-induced stunts tumor growth, and this is all published in the journal called Nature. And it just backs up what we know about cold water rebirthing and how important it is as part of a physical immortality practices. Okay, this is just to point out the brainwave state that we get into when we either use rebirthing or meditation and getting into a heightened state in the meditation. So we move from the conscious thinking mind, clearing the mind, using mind mastery to get out of that thinking state, and we move into alpha, which is the subconscious mind or a meditation state, and then into theta, where we can change programming, and this is where we start moving into the unconscious. Now, as we move into gamma, then we can have mystical experiences, and that enters the superconscious mind. But the most important thing, as with any technique, whether it's rebirthing or meditation, is surrender. Surrender from the mental mind thinking, which keeps us in this 3D reality. Okay, so with Joe's pineal gland activation technique, the whole way it works is by holding your breath, increases intrathecal pressure of your cerebral spinal fluid in your spinal column. So this is the area where an epidural might be put in during the birthing process. Then what you need to do is contract your perineum muscles. This is the mula bandha, the base chakra. You contract those muscles, holding them in. And then by squeezing your muscles, this forces the cerebrospinal fluid upwards into the brain. Okay, and eventually, as it moves further up into the brain, into the pineal area, it causes mechanical stress on the crystals in the pineal gland. Now, work was done early 2000s that found there are calcite crystals within the pineal gland. So it's a bit like a radio transmitter having these crystals in there. And the calcite crystals become electrically activated when that pressure builds up, and this causes melatonin to be produced. Now, the important point of melatonin is that usually it's released during our sleeping state. So serotonin is produced during daytime and melatonin at night when we're asleep. And the production of melatonin goes hand in hand with also the production within our brain of DMT. And that's how we have visions in dreams. So in an awake state, but we are actually causing our pineal gland to get activated and release melatonin, this is when we have the illumination with inside our head, this bright illumination and very clear visions. Now, I'm also a hypnotherapist, and the visions that you would create during, say, a hypnotherapy guided meditation session, they're quite different. Whereas the visions created during a pineal gland activation are very clear and very bright. This is how you do the breath. You take a deep breath in and then exhale, pushing all the air out of your nose. And you're pushing and pushing to get all of the air out. Then you hold your breath. You contract your perineum muscles. And by holding your breath, you're starting to activate movement of the cerebrospinal fluid. So then you slowly breathe in, focus on drawing the breath from the perineum to the pineal gland. And as the breath moves up, contract your abdomen muscles and then your chest muscles. So you're pushing against the spinal column. And then hold your breath when you reach the pineal gland. And this creates more tension on the pineal gland. Then you need to squeeze more, putting your hands in the prayer position, putting that helps, or down by the side of you and pushing. So you're squeezing more of that fluid up into your head.
Blow that air out of your nose all the way. Now lock it down. Blow out again. Squeeze, now blow out again. Squeeze. Hold it. Come on. Perineum to pineal. Inhale. Pull that energy. Lift up all the way to the brain. Hold it. Keep your attention on it. Now lift up. Now pump. Pull up and pump. 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 Pump and exhale. You feel that?
It really is an interesting practice to experience, and it's all about experience. Now, we can get to this state also in rebirthing. And once when Leonard was facilitating a session for me, I got to that state of feeling everything in the universe and nothing at the very same time. And in that moment, it was such a mind-wrecking experience. I loved that, like, you know, like the mind just couldn't comprehend how it was. So I really, we can do this in rebirthing. And it's just, like I said before, the important thing is surrender. Now, I'm looking forward to hearing more of Joe's research and how it goes, because he really is doing some interesting work in this field at the moment. So thank you all for listening.